Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm the amateur, where I'm not necessarily a professional in any way, shape, or form, but we're kind of here just to talk life, politics, hobbies, habits, life advice, though I shouldn't really be giving anything to you with that. But anyway, on this episode, I am going to be giving my confession on how I let myself be bamboozled by the media, and I freaking wrote a song about it because I do dabble into some songwriting. So this was in the height of the George Floyd riots last year. I in 2020, and I definitely did not pay as much attention to the media as I could have. I definitely grew up in an apolitical household. I have no idea how my parents voted or like how they vote. We didn't watch the news a lot. Like that was just something that we didn't do. My mom didn't like everything that was pushed out. Like even before it got as politicized as it is now. Like even in the past, it was just like she couldn't stomach watching it just because of all the harshness that was pushed out. So we did not watch the news a lot growing up. I didn't really pay attention to politics. I wasn't into politics. I didn't really care about that stuff. I was definitely a lot more headed towards the liberal side of things. Like I wouldn't call myself a liberal. I didn't like go out. I never caved in to be like a self-proclaimed feminist or anything along those lines. But definitely the stuff that I was seeing, especially on TikTok is poison, and also on Instagram. I used to follow a Karen account because it was like funny, the stuff that people were doing, but then it got super like just blaming white people. I was like, don't do that. And so it wasn't taking things at a case-by-case basis. It was always trying to lump everything into one group or another. But the point of the matter with this song is that I let myself be bamboozled by the media. I kind of caved in. I didn't do my own research. And obviously I had I had some pretty strong feelings, but especially with the George Floyd and was it Breonna Taylor, and just I wasn't going out to seek everything. And I know that a lot of information at the time, which I think I wrote this in around I don't know when I wrote this. I think it was maybe June when I wrote it, but I wasn't familiar with most of the talking points. I wasn't familiar with Black Lives Matter, the organization. So like when I heard Black Lives Matter at the time, I was just thinking Black Lives Matter because all lives matter. But yeah, Black Lives Matter, of course, Black Lives Matter. Black lives still do matter. All lives matter. But that was kind of the mindset, and I have to give myself some leeway here so y'all don't come in with the cringe and the accusations. But I also want to say that again, like I'm still pretty strong in my Christian faith and Christian belief, and so I was also trying to come from a point of I think really along Martin Luther King's, how he kind of his approach to creating racial unity, which isn't, it may or may not be prevalent, but I'm gonna go ahead and explain my lyrics line by line, and we'll address the things that we need to address. So I'm not gonna be singing it. So it's when will it end, all this hatred for one's skin. And so that was kind of meant to be a play on words for like one skin, like how the hate was typically towards Black folks. Though now that I'm like, my eyes are open, I'm seeing it's definitely a lot more towards white folks. People hate white folks. It's crazy. We love you, white people, even all the white folks, because we have to. Jesus Christ, amen. Like one skin, so it was more like all this hatred for one's skin. I thought it was a good line. And when will it end, all these deaths for no reason? Until we see that justice rings, reform and change to policies, it won't end until the day that truth reigns free. So what I was saying here is like, again, I know with the political scene and how everything goes, like it was meant to understand that like true form of justice, and not the justice that we've seen where Black people are supposedly getting off early, or getting off easy, or white people are getting off too easy, or Black people are coming down too hard. It was like what I intended by that line is the true form of justice, God's form of justice, and that the way to go about changing these things is to change the policies. And by that, I meant like ensuring that the good cops and the good police officers, that they're there and they stay, and that the bad cops are a lot easier to wean and get out of the surface. Because I do understand, like, as with anything, the bad apple, the bad seed is like usually like 1% of the entire population, but that rot just affects so much. It's like ridiculous. It's ridiculous how very little people affects so much the greater scene of things. And so that was what I was wanting to do. And the day that truth reigns free is just making sure that the whole facts are out, like the true value of truth, like reality, and like lies will always be known, because there will be a truth that can counteract that. So that's the chorus, and that's kind of the thought process that I had behind there. But ugh. And so we go into the verse, and so this was like a rap. I was trying to get into my spoken word. Don't at me, okay? So the words go, one knee to the neck and a voice I can't breathe, running down the streets to go home, stop shooting me. Lest words on this earth, black men cry for help, for his people in the graves and the cards they've been dealt. And so this here was meant to be obviously a reference to George Floyd. And I think I did a quick research on, I can't remember the name. I'll probably put it in the little line underneath, but it was like, those are some of the last words that black men were saying before they were killed or that they died. And so that's where the last words on this earth, that black men were crying for help, for people to be stopped. So even with George Floyd, and you'll see this later down the line, like even with him and everything that's come to light with the trial and the case, like I don't think that every single verdict that was pressed against, was it Derek Chauvin? I don't think everything was valid. I do think that the knee to the neck and the fact that they, like, there was definitely negligence involved, but I don't think murder was a good verdict, especially based off all the tensions that were kind of on the outside. But I knew none of this at the time. I didn't know that George had taken fentanyl at the time. So these were all the facts that I was just being pressed by the media. And then obviously, like, everyone's been like, we recognize it in history. I think definitely now a lot of black communities or black folks are starting off better than they were in the past. And those that aren't doing well is usually a familial issue and not a fault of society or the government. Or it might be actually a fault of the government. We'll get into that later. There's going to be another series on this. But as far as the cards they've been dealt, it's like everyone doesn't have a good hand. You can't really control how other people feel about you. And I think I made another video as far as with races. Like, you can't, like, some people just aren't going to like your skin color. Like, racists will be racist. Kind of besides the point, though. Well, it'll be a whole nother video. We'll just stick to the song right now. So, say his name, George Floyd, the catalyst to this fight, the spark that lit a fire to set the world aright. Say her name, Breonna Taylor, a woman who's no more, shot in her own home, and for this required war. So obviously these were two of the bigger cases and two of the bigger names that were being pushed out by Black Lives Matter, the organization, and being pushed out by a lot of media. And say his name. And so, yeah. I think I already said what I needed to say about those two. I think with Breonna Taylor as well, it was, like, again, both of those deaths weren't necessary, but they also all could have been prevented by the actions of the personnel that they were around. Like, if George Floyd had also just gone with the police officer instead of putting up a fight, everything else could have been handled. And I tell this to people in my black community, is like, it's like, I get that there are going to be super corrupt police officers. However infrequent those are, they still exist. But it's always better to just deal with the paperwork in court for any maltreatment than it is to be non-compliant and lose your life, because that's what, like, police officers are trained to. That's, like, their job is to restore order. And again, I think there's the level, I'm kind of trailing from the point a little bit, but there is a level of a police officer's job is to try to de-escalate a situation, de-escalate violence as best as possible. But if people aren't going to cooperate with that, like, they also have to protect their lives and protect the lives of those around them. The whole of the topic, as far as with police reform, I'm not super well spoken on that subject, but we're going on. So, war against the racist who chooses not to see, war against the reckless police brutality, war against injustice of our daughters and sons, rise up for the oppressed so we can stand as one. And so, again, like, I felt like I was coming at this with really good intentions, but especially with seeing everything in the political climate, like, I can see how this can be like, girl, you really wrote that? Oh. And so, war against the race, like, so everything I say here is like in what I mean, like, by true racist. So, like, someone who sees skin, I mean, there's a whole hell of a lot of black racist people, like, you see that. But even here, just by the definition of those who choose to see race before anything else, who choose to see the skin color before anything else, and, like, associate all those negative characteristics of people who happen to be black who commit these things, and put that over, again, a whole another conversation on that, but that's kind of where that was. Reckless police brutality. So again, like, for me, coming from an area, like, I had parents and sisters and family members that served in the military, so I understand the service, especially as it comes to police officers. So it's like reckless police brutality, like when you're being violent for no reason. This is kind of based off some of the videos that I saw floating across TikTok at the time, of a whole lot of riots, and what it appeared to be is non-confrontational people who were protesting, and yet police were showing violence and, like, unnecessary cruelty against them. At least that was, like, my perspective. So that's kind of where that line was created. And then oppressed, like it applied to everything and everyone, and standing as one, trying to push a message still of unity, because, like, I still don't like the answer of division. And then it goes back to the chorus, which was the first kind of line that I end. And then going into the second verse, riots are not the answer, but our leaders won't listen. This was in reference to President Trump at the time. Riots are not the answer, but now we've got your attention. And so with this, and especially looking back in hindsight, like, seeing how, like, I don't know, I don't think I was aware of all the deaths that were involved of personnel that were in the BLM riots. But for me, like, I think it was in reference to the MLK junior line that was just talking about how riots can be a tool of the people. It's not a good one. I definitely don't recommend it. And I understand that it does do a lot of damage to properties and businesses. Like, I don't know. There was something that was being said along the water, so I was like, yeah. So that's, I mean, you see it. Riots are not the answer, but XYZ, and riots are not the answer, but also. So it was just kind of like a play on that sentiment. I don't think riots are ever going to be the answer, but they are, like, they're not a form of protest either. It's just violence. Okay, but then this outcry you have for the property damage is the outrage we hold for the lives that were taken. Okay, one day you'll realize that things can be replaced. The damage ain't the reason for the problems we face. The lives that were stolen from these needless attacks as a son or a father, we are never getting back. And so this is, again, understanding that there's a difference in the value of lives versus the value of people. And so someone, like, property damage is horrible. Damages to businesses, horrible. As thefts, thievery, vandalism, that's all horrible. But it's still not comparable. I mean, I don't think it's comparable to the life of a person, period. Like, you can always get that property back, depending on what it is, maybe. But that life, that individual, unique life, won't ever get back. And then also, it's like, this is coming from that these people weren't necessarily criminals. Or that's, again, kind of the my mindset that I was coming from, is that these people, they did no wrong. And I think you heard all the other kind of criminal activity that George Floyd had, which kind of paints him more of a negative light. And I think the same thing with Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend and everything that was wrong with that situation. So, yeah. Okay, so begging for our lives from the color of our skin because some people refuse to see the beauty within. We say I'm black and I'm proud and hope for the better, but nothing will change until Black Lives Matter. So I know. It's freaking cringe. Don't freaking come for me. I'm like reading this back and I'm like, okay, how can I change this so the message that I want is still there without referencing things that have shown like that did not age well. They did not age well at all. And it's so embarrassing. I can't believe I'm posting this. Ugh. But I just want, we'll get to that later. And so then it goes back into the chorus of when will it end, all this hatred for one's skin, etc. And then this is really kind of what started it, like the song, because this was the theme that was kind of running in my head. But we are crying out for peace. This is the kind of the bridge. We are crying out for the ones not heard, the voices underneath. We are standing here today begging for the world to change, and it starts with you and me. And it starts with you and me. And so, yeah, so that's the song that I wrote. And as far as what that bridge goes, like, I am still wanting peace. I want unity of our races. I want unity of our people, of our nation, of our country. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think there are still some, I think there are some cases of justice that weren't necessarily executed correctly. I'm not going to give an example here because I haven't done enough research. I still haven't. I'm just being honest. But as far as with change going, I think the sentiment still goes that the best change starts from grassroots. It starts from the people. It starts from society that will slowly work its way up to those who are meant to serve us. That's another conversation as well. So I just wanted to share this video, this very cringe video of myself and my lack of just how one time it just kind of show how easily people can be persuaded or how people can be influenced, as well as just how easy it is to not do any research or to look into a situation much further and to like just admit that fault and admit like, hey, I recognize that I was deceived and I'm admitting it and letting people know like, hey, this isn't like, you're not the only one, you're not alone in this, but you have to recognize that there is a different truth, like the real truth, than what's been pushed and what's being told, and to be able to take a step back and look at everything with through a lens of what do the facts say, what does the evidence show, and before jumping to conclusions. And so that's something that I'm learning still. And I'll play a clip of the song, but it's, yeah. Okay, so that's all I have. I'm just an amateur songwriter, amateur singer. I don't have soul in my voice. I'm sorry, I recognize that. You know how like a lot of black singers typically, and I say black singers, like there's plenty of people not black that have soul in their voice. I'm not one of them. My shame to bears, whatever. But thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Next videos are going to be starting to get more about race as well, because I think that's just something that severely needs to be addressed. But yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.